Nice. Synchronized. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, welcome to the second episode, official episode of Unpermitted with Chris and Tony.
Yes. Unpermitted, unscripted.
Unscripted. I actually do have a script. This is the extent of my script.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Uh,
Very professional looking.
You know, I'm old school. I know
Yeah,
you
you
got
are.
your little iPhone over there, and you're just.
Oh, I'm not. I'm just on Hinge over here. I'm just kidding. So, I was thinking we could talk about, a little bit about our backgrounds. I'm sure people want to know, like, who the hell are these guys to be talking about business development? So let's talk about a little bit of our backgrounds and then kind of what we do. It's been a crazy week this week.
Yeah, I agree. I think we covered a little bit about that, about who we are and our backgrounds in the last podcast, and
Did we?
Yeah.
I don't think I'd said anything really.
Really? Well, what would you like to tell the audience about yourself, Chris?
I mean, not
You're
too
single,
much
you're a
information.
Capricorn, you like
Yeah, I don't have
dogs.
social media, so don't even try. There might be some weird YouTube videos on there, but no, I thought it was an interesting that we make a dynamic duo where you really didn't come from a place of construction. I originally didn't start in construction. I never thought I was going to be in construction. I kind of just fell into it and then kind of continued down that path. But during that time, I was always constantly doing business development, but I never really understood what business development actually was until somewhat recently. And I still think that there's a lot of people out there that don't really understand. I think when they hear business development, they just think, oh, we're just taking out a lot of people to coffee and to lunch and dinners and things of that nature.
Wait, you're not?
I mean, it's a part of it. I wish it was more consistent of that, but really that's like, to me, that might be 10% of what we're actually doing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was just telling someone, it's not like I have to put on my business development hat, and now I'm a business development, now I'm in sales. And I think, I don't know who penned this, but someone wiser than me once said, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I have that same approach in this business development role. For me, again, it's just about building relationships. Just like how we're having a conversation is, I lead with curiosity. I lead with questions with my clients and prospective clients, and even people that aren't necessarily a direct business transaction, because I think each one of those interactions has value. So for me, it's just, in the business development role, yes, we've got tools. This podcast is potentially a tool of business development. But for me, I think the important thing is I'm always trying to connect with people, and I think that's what we do. So I know we wanted to talk about kind of a little bit about, a day in the life, or let's say a week in the life of a business development. And I think this week is a pretty good week because, there isn't any one week that is the same. There isn't any one day that's the same. We come in with a plan, our idea, and then we get hijacked, but sometimes hijacked in a way that actually enhances our experience more so than we thought, on Sunday night when we're preparing for the next week.
Yeah. But something just came to my mind too, because that was a good point that you made. Is like building these relationships, talking to people. It's something that I think that we were both natural at. Like if I didn't know you and you were just sitting across from me on the bus like this, I feel like we could generally just have a good conversation. And I think that would work with most people. But once you throw in that business aspect, like there's almost a protective layer where they just kind of shy away and don't really want to like talk to you. Like a lot of these, we're calling a lot of hotel groups right now, and a few of them, are interested. And then you're always going to get that guy that's just like, don't call me, don't ever talk to me. Actually, you had an interesting story this week.
I actually did have that.
Yeah.
I was.
And they backpedaled.
They did in a great way, and I kind of want to talk about the arc of the emotions that you go through as a business development when you get that rejection. Basically, I was reaching out to a large ownership group of vacation rentals, timeshare type product. And on the voicemail of this guy, it said, hey, if I don't know this number, I probably won't pick up. So please text me.
Mm-hmm.
So I just left a message. Hey, I get it. I get a lot of calls. I was in an operating role. I got a lot of people calling me trying to sell me things. I'm not trying to sell. I'm just trying to connect and understand how you guys are approaching your PIP program,
Yeah.
or property improvement plan program. But I will, I'll shoot you a text. So I shot him a text. 5 minutes later, I get this text. Take me off your list. Don't contact me again.
Get out of here.
It's like, well, I was just following the directions that you left on your voicemail.
Yeah.
So I was feeling a little deflated, and I was, at another client site, try to put it out of my mind, driving home from Colorado Springs, and I get a text, and it's an apology from the same guy saying, hey, I heard your message. I'm sorry, I was a little bit of, I was a little abrupt with you.
Yeah.
Would love to hear, what you guys do in the space. And, Kyle, who is our, production manager and business development, and digital marketing,
drone pilot.
Exactly. Producer of podcast.
Yeah.
Many
hats.
Exactly. And he whipped together a great presentation for his group, tailored specifically for his, his company, and we're shooting that out today. And it starts at the beginning of a good conversation. But what I was saying, that the arc of emotion that I went from, I finally found the guy that I needed to talk to. I thought I, left a thoughtful message or whatever, got shot down, so energy went down, felt defeated again. And now I'm back up. So how do you manage those emotions through, the sales process? Because that's not an atypical story, right?
I mean, for me personally, I'm somewhat of an emotional person regardless. So it was a bit of a transition, But it's true, I'm a very empathetic person, and I can sense when other people's emotions, and naturally you just are emotional person as well. And so, taking the personal things out of it, I've gotten better, tougher skin with when these people get up on the phone call and they're basically like, F you, buddy, don't ever talk to me. At first, it would kind of, it would dip me, and then my next calls were not as confident, and so it's a learning process for sure. And as both of us have never really been strategically placed as business development managers, we may have done the type of work previously in the past. I think it was a learning process, but I think that's the other good thing that helped me improve, was having a teammate that I could bounce ideas off of. We often talk about when we're feeling deflated, we kind of just talk through these things, and it's just, at the end of the day, you're talking to humans, and who knows what's going on the other end of that phone call. But outside of that, it's still just, the weeks in itself are just crazy. Like, I think both you and I had a crazy week this week.
Yeah, tell me about your week, because I think we had, similar. We were both in Colorado Springs for different reasons, but
I've been born and raised in Colorado, and I've not been to Colorado Springs more than I have in these past 2 weeks. So beautiful down there, but obviously, we have a large insurance claim loss for one of our senior living clients down in Bear Creek, Colorado Springs. It was a very unique situation. They were in the middle of a purchase agreement. They actually were the operator, and there was a building owner, and they were, under contract to purchase the property from the building owner. And they were going to use a HUD loan, which is a federally funded loan. And so the HUD requirements, they want, before providing the loan, they want to make sure everything is up to par.
And there's a timetable with that loan process, right?
Exactly.
So you got to get this done.
And this roof was, we'd actually been working on this roof since 2023. There was a much smaller hailstorm out there. They had opened up a claim, but the claim was a little bit, like, their deductible was extremely high, and the claim was just right underneath it. So they decided not to use anything. And then they came to us. They're about to purchase the property. And literally, like, I was talking to him Friday the week before, and then Sunday came, and it was like him and I almost manifested this hailstorm, which sounds terrible because it sat over the property for 45 minutes. I feel really bad for the people inside. But yeah, on that Monday morning, I came into the office and Elvis, who's on our roofing side, he's like, "Have you checked in that Bear Creek property?" And little it like was the epicenter of this hailstorm, and all the properties around there like did not get anything. So
Also, it's just
it was like
concentrated.
concentrated on this property. I'm telling you, my manifestation skills have been on point lately. I just need to learn how to control them a little bit better and target
you have
them.
any tips on the Powerball, or I'm like
That's I gotta step up to those things. So, but that was part. You think business development. Kyle and I had to go down there on Monday to assist in documenting over 500 windows on which ones got damage and which ones did not. Now, most people wouldn't really typically think that that's a business development role, but it's all about facilitating these relationships and not stepping away from the deal. Like I don't know how other companies do it, but from what I know how we do it here, like we are the face of this client contractor relationship.
Sure.
And we do whatever it takes to A, get the client what they deserve, and B, close these deals,
and C, add value.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because after this one roof claim, they have, and I got to be careful because this is still not public knowledge yet, but let's just say that they're acquiring a lot of properties in a market that we operate in. So that's that beauty of building the relationships. Our sales lines, and you've said this before, like it's a long process. It's not like we're door to door, shoe shine salesmen, where
Right.
you're getting a quick buck right there. Like we're building these relationships and really harboring them for months, years at a time.
Years in this case.
Before, anything could pay off. So that was how the week started. And then obviously, we have a very targeted effort towards Florida this week.
Yeah. And that changed our own personal schedule. So we were like, we're going to focus on Florida. And I think this is very typical of how we approach everything. We didn't say like, okay, how are we going to let the Florida market respond to us in terms of timetable? So we changed our, time in, time out. We came in at 7 in the morning, so our time, so that we can align with our clients in Florida. And I think that's our approach with everything that we do. We're going to be the one that is more malleable and flexible to the needs of our clients. And it's been a great week for me. Like I said, we're focusing on hospitality. We're focusing in the Florida market. I think we split it. I'm in Orlando. I've got young kids. So
Tampa and
Orlando. So I like that little Central Florida area.
Papi Chulo in Miami.
You're in Miami
all the way up to Jacksonville.
Exactly. So you're hitting the coast.
I'm hitting every Florida man, every type of Florida man you could see. That's who we should start bringing on the podcast after we go to Florida. They've
got some interesting characters, I'll tell you that. But I love that market,
and
I think it's a market that I lived in for a while. Kyle, you're from the old Central Florida area.
Live there, not from there.
Okay, lived there for a while. Yeah, he's an Eagles fan, so we'll get into that later.
Go Birds.
But our focus was that. However, you got called away to Colorado Springs.
Mm-hmm.
I got called away for a different reason.
Yeah.
And I can mention this.
Very cool project.
Very cool project. So have you been to the Antlers down in Colorado Springs?
I did go down. I didn't know that was your lead, and I almost slipped it from you, unexpectedly.
Hey,
but it was cool because
caring.
I got, and sometimes that happens between us, and we never really had like a beef about it. Like I think I even switched your name onto lead today.
You did.
Anyways,
you did.
Very cool property, but tell me more about it because I didn't know. What did you say that it was like? That's where America the Beautiful was written, or?
Yeah, I wrote down a couple of things because I knew I was going to forget this. So first of all, the hotel was built in 1883.
Okay.
Right, so it goes back a long way. Catherine Lee Bates, the author and who penned America the Beautiful.
Kathy Bates.
No. Well, there is a connection there too, by the way.
Is there? Okay.
Yeah, there is. So 10 years later in 1893, she penned America the Beautiful. Also, Jackson Palmer, who's known as the founder of Colorado Springs. Palmer Lake is named after him. Also stayed at the hotel. And then more recently, Alice Cooper stays there anytime he's in town. The history in this place is incredible. But speaking of Bates and the Bates Motel, there's also an interesting kind of, and as a matter of fact, they just signed an agreement with the Downtown Colorado Historic Society where they do these ghost tours. And now it's part of the ghost tour.
Is it?
Yeah. So I was talking with the engineer.
I love that stuff.
Oh, I know you do. You like the paranormal, and
yeah.
it's all freaky. So he was telling me a story about when the hotel, they were doing a major renovation. The entire hotel was empty except for 3 people, and he did have a paranormal event where he was walking down an empty hall and heard coughing, like someone coughing, and there was no one there. So anyway, I'm excited to be part of that project. Helping preserve history, and then the views. I took some pictures from the rooftop view. They have got a rooftop pool that's amazing.
Yeah, I saw your LinkedIn photos. It looked.
It was a great. So it's a great project. It's anytime we get a chance to preserve history, I think those projects are kind of special to us. So, and it was totally unexpected. Like I was not, like I said, our focus was Florida, but we had another hospitality client that needed us here, and we were able to provide, some improvements to that property while still respecting the history and, the historical nature.
Yeah.
So it was really good.
How do you, I guess it's not really a question. That's kind of what threw us off on our Florida, because we were going to be going to Florida, but, the clients back home have kind of, switched up our plans. And planning and strategizing for Florida, I think, is something that I'd love to talk about too. And I think you and I are kind of doing something similar where we have a number of different tools that we use. Shout out to CoStar, shout out to Seamless AI.
Yeah.
It's a great way to get contacts. Basically, I've been doing
and don't forget LinkedIn.
And LinkedIn, yeah. And so, there's the trifecta, there's the LinkedIn, the phone call, and the email. And I think, I did over 200 of those just in the past 3 days, only Florida specific, not Florida based headquarter hotel operators. Maybe those are about 10%, because the majority of them are elsewhere. But yeah, reaching out there, using AI, Seamless AI to find these key decision makers, looking them up on LinkedIn. That's a majority of what I was doing this week, And again, it's like there's this idea that business developer guys are just constantly getting coffee. Man, I wish I was just constantly getting coffee. I wish I would have time to just even have lunch, on a daily basis.
I was about to ask you, because I don't think either one of us had lunch today, right?
I did. I have to order Subway. I did order like a little wrap because I was dying. But that was like the first lunch this entire week.
Got it.
And every time I look down at the clock, I'm like, oh my God, it's already like 5 o'clock.
Well, that's the fun part about
it. Is
about
fun.
Business development. Even today, we got invited in to interview a potential new lead estimator for us.
Yes.
And I think what I really like is the collaborative nature of our roles. We're a collaborative company in general, but specifically in our roles, we're asked to participate in all the aspects of the company, including hiring and recruiting of talent. And, I think we're good ambassadors of the culture and the like. And I'm doing a faux pas here. My phone is going nuts.
That's
Business
right.
development. There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
There's a call. So
I like that about us, because these larger companies that compartmentalize, all of the divisions, it's like we can go to Tara and she knows what we're doing and we know what she's doing. And so it's like we represent the company as a whole, which I feel gives it a more personal touch.
I think it makes us, it also gives us a better end product, because we're not siloed.
Yes.
We view the projects holistically, but then we also, operate them.
Yes.
From the bidding process through production and operations, it's a holistic approach. And I think that shows in our work.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately that's going to help us build stronger relationships, because I know a lot of these other, and I'm not trying to ever downplay any other business developer, but I know that just like structurally it just set up different where they get the lead and then they just pass it off, whereas like our jobs are to be fully ingrained through the ups and downs of what is this craziness called, commercial construction,
Oh yeah.
with our clients, kind of holding their hands, having them take some breaths, the ups, the downs, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah, and the blind spots that they may have,
Yeah.
or we have a different perspective. So I mean, we're always seeing the things that affect the market in general and bringing that information to our clients. Oftentimes I'm sending them information that has nothing to do with the project, but has to do with how they operate. Whether it's how the tariffs are going to affect them, how the tax structure, or here in Colorado where we've got energized Denver,
Yeah.
there might be some new legislation that passes, and I try to pass that information to my clients. And I think that's another way that I think we both kind of provide value. And I said this to you earlier, and you were like, I have no idea what this means. And I say, you keep what you have by giving it away. You're like, what do you mean? And what I meant by that is you keep the knowledge that you have by giving it. Even us talking about our process and business development, some people are like, well, you don't want to talk too much about how we find, what if our competitors look and they hear that, oh, they're using seamless AI. I didn't know about that. So
Yeah.
now, but I think that's the wrong approach. I think we have an approach, our philosophy and our mindset comes from a place of abundance, right?
Yeah.
So we don't have a scarcity mindset. So I think sharing our knowledge is how we keep it, and I think even as a kid, I don't know if you had this experience, but I had a teacher that basically said, would have each student, after they teach a lesson, teach it to your desk mate. So in teaching that and sharing your knowledge, it only deepens your own knowledge.
Yeah,
so,
I could see that.
So that's what I meant by
It's almost like your brain is like making different connections and really solidifying them.
Correct.
Because
Those
now, you're not only,
synapses are-
yeah, exactly. Now you're only listening. Now you're teaching, explaining.
And I think that is I'm glad you said teaching, because I think that is also a huge part of the business development role that is not done very well, I don't think. I mean, I'm not saying that we do it great, but at least we have the intention of teaching, what we know, the knowledge that we have, and sharing the knowledge that we have.
Yeah, because we were talking today too that when we were interviewing that estimator, that a large majority of these ownerships don't know anything about construction, and it could be a little bit frustrating, when they're pushing back on things that in our eyes make sense for us, but you have to keep that cool, calm, and collected, and get back to that teacher mode. And sometimes it works in our favor. Sometimes I feel like they play ignorant, and that's okay too, but that's also the fun part, is like you get to deal with so many different types of personalities in this industry, and especially in our job specifically. So I mean, the approach is always different. That's what's always fun about this job. Every day is always a little bit different. Even if we're doing the same kind of things over and over, there's always just a little bit of a tweak that you have to make, when you're doing this research and you're calling this person and you're doing a little bit of research, it's like you're gonna approach them a little bit differently than you would this other person.
I gotta tell you, that for me is both the thing that I enjoy the most and the thing that I think I need to work on the most as well, is that research, because you can go down a rabbit hole, and research, and I didn't know
It's been a whole half
this
day.
is a shell company of this, and they're in this market, and it. So how do you keep your focus, like, because that's been difficult for me.
It is difficult for me too, because we've talked about this too. Like my brain is just random chaos going on, just like research this company, don't forget to email this person. Joe Rogan's like UAP podcast is just playing just in the background over there. So for me, using that CRM. Shout
out to Joe Rogan, inspiration behind our podcast.
Man, Joe, if you ever need somebody to come talk ancient aliens with you, I'm down. But the tools that we have, we use HubSpot. Shout out HubSpot too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I couldn't do it without that. Setting these tasks, setting these reminders. It's just an automated system type thing. And even when we pivoted to Florida, there's so many different functions inside this tool that, I was able to create a Florida specific hospitality list for Miami, and, kind of created a process and setting things in there. And what I have been trying to do is create, more strict schedules. Like ultimately I would love to just be like, okay, Monday, if you ask me like, what do you do Tuesdays at 10 p.m., I already know, like, because I'm doing the same thing every Tuesday.
Well,
Unfortunately,
let
it's a
me
pipe
know how
dream.
let me know if that works
It's
out.
it's a pipe dream.
What's that saying? Is like, man makes a plan and God laughs, or something like that. Like, but I agree. And I think Dennis, the owner of Global and sponsor of this podcast, Global Construction.
Yeah.
He's got a great mindset and framework about that. He's like, just concentrate on the three main things you have to do that day.
Yeah.
And if you've accomplished that, that's a good day.
Yeah.
And I think we get a little in the weeds, and we want to do 10 million things. We want to do a podcast. We want to do some drone shots. We got to do research. We got to
Yeah. It gets busy. Life gets busy.
It does. So,
and the strategies. I mean, last week my strategy was personal site visits. I did, I think, over 30. I dropped into over 30 different hotels in 2 different days, which that's part of the little. I will say that it was a little bit not frustrating, but I feel like if we don't give a strategy a certain enough time, then we can't even bring the metrics to weigh it and see if it was even efficient or not. But understandably, when we have to pivot, we have to pivot. There was a reason that we went hard in Florida. But I will say those 30 site visits, there's always something that you could take away. There's something that I learned. I would say 30% of those hotels that I went to had recently just been renovated. So that means that people are doing it. Obviously interest rates are super high. Banks aren't giving money out for new developments. So especially in the hospitality industry, even if their property improvement plans aren't up, especially in Florida, just based on, competition with Airbnb, the travel market, the tourism market's going back up, especially after COVID. People want to get back out there. These hotels are renovating.
Yeah, and the timeshares as well. A lot of these timeshares, as a matter of fact, I was reaching out to a big timeshare company down in Florida, and it's kind of a personal connection to that timeshare group. Mm-hmm. It's actually a timeshare that I took my wife for her birthday, and there was fireworks playing in the background, and I remember this specifically this mahogany chest that was in there. So I'm talking to the project manager about my experience 20 years ago, back in 2005, that I really connected to this resort, and she was like, "Well, that chest is still there. We haven't renovated since 2005. So,
oh wow,
it's 20 years later. So yeah, the need is there.
Yeah.
For what we do, and I'm glad that we're able to provide, be a resource for them as well.
And these groups, I mean, we have the Gaylord Palms just did $134 million renovation. Key Biscayne, Ritz-Carlton, $100 million renovation. I mean, these guys are doing the math, and it's making sense for them, which is great to see, that tourism side is picking back up. Yeah. Even outside of like a good business for us. It's just good to see that the world's turning again. That was a little bit of a dark time in COVID. Shit got weird for a while.
It did. And I don't know if you saw this, also that I think is going to impact our industry. But, we don't get into politics on this podcast, but there was something that went on in that realm that will have a positive effect on us. So I think it was just yesterday, the day before, there was an executive order that was signed that allows 401ks to invest in real estate. Before, they weren't allowed to invest in that real estate class. They're also allowed to invest in crypto. That's a whole different story.
Yeah.
But basically now, ownership groups, developers, investment firms now have access to 401ks. I think they have about $10 trillion in capital. So that's that infusion of cash in the industries, in the verticals that we
didn't know about
concentrate. That. Yeah, I think the floodgates are gonna open even further. I think for us and for people in those industries. Real estate is hot. And especially in Florida. So
it's been hot. Yeah.
Yeah, we want to be a part of that, and we want to
absolutely
help shape that growth.
What I was talking to Kyle about earlier that I didn't get a chance to tell you. We need to take Tony and Chris unpermitted on the road when we go to Florida.
Ooh.
And that's where we got the Tommy Bahama shirts, we're in the shorts, and we get one of those big hotel groups, like a Rosen or a Gen Com type situation, and
Oh yeah.
we bring one of those VPs or CEOs on there, and I want to hear straight from the horse's mouth.
And you know what? That's interesting that you said that, because that has been my strategy. I've been calling VPs of construction and design, VP of operations, and just again with that curiosity mindset, just asking them what they're seeing in the market, how they're approaching their PIP program, how they're approaching major renovations, how they're preparing. This is towards the tail end of hurricane season, and not that we're a restoration company or want to chase that kind of business, but just getting an overall feel from people in the know in the industry, and I think people appreciate when you actually show that genuine interest on what their pain points are, where they're feeling the friction, where do they see the opportunities, and that part of researching and connecting and talking to the folks that are in those industries in Florida has been kind of mind-opening. It makes me a better business development person, that I'm educated on this now, and based on the people who are in that market versus us trying to superimpose what our thoughts are in the market.
The new strategy I've been trying to do, which we've discussed, was I'm trying to talk more directly to the brands, and the brand ambassadors. There was that software that we found. I forget, it was like Lodge Enterprises or something like that. It was supposed to be like it's supposed to be a software that kind of shows you what property improvement plans are in the pipeline. But I asked him, I said, how are you guys gaining this information? Like, is this AI technology that you guys are just like raking the web for? And he said no. He said the first thing he said is that they have relationships with these brands, which I was like, that makes sense. It's like you pick that one regional manager that represents all of the choice hotels or Hilton hotels in South Florida. You make buddies with that guy, you're gonna know 6 months in advance before anybody else knows that XYZ properties are going to be doing a property improvement plan. So again, sometimes it's not only just making the strategy, it's like making a strategy to find a strategy.
Yeah, and part of it is kind of that manifestation that you're talking about, and I think it's just leading with intention. That you made fun of my shirt earlier.
Did I?
But this is all about I'm trying to get in gear for our Florida.
I think I made fun of your shirt yesterday.
You did. I was wearing.
I like that shirt.
Okay, all right, but I agree with you. The Tommy Bahamas.
Yeah.
And again, we're so blessed to be in the roles that we are in the industries that we are in, and I don't want to ignore Colorado, because Arizona, which is those are our core markets, and the hospitality game in those states is very strong as well too. So
talking to the one group that has 2 hotel renovations in Arizona, he asked me not to say the name yet, but it's like it's a large,
rhymes with
Pantera, but they focus on like really cool like outdoor, like all of their hotels are by like national parks and stuff like that.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And like this hotel has like its own train, so it's like this train that goes like on 100 miles. It just like goes there and back, but they do like a really cool like Polar Express type thing. So I mean, all of these niche little things. I mean, there's the 3 big boys, there's Hilton, there's Marriott, and then I think IHG just broke over 1 million rooms. And I think they're coming in at number 3. So, but outside of that, I mean, I never really knew the hospitality game, and I'm starting to learn it. And there's just like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these like groups from Kentucky and Virginia and South Carolina, and like this hospitality, that hospitality, and it's just like there's just so much out there, and just trying to build relationships with them all.
On the hospitality side, I almost feel like it's almost like a homecoming to me. We talked about this. I'm originally from the Virgin Islands, right? So I would say 90% of the economy is a tourism-based economy, and and my first job in real estate was working for McLaughlin Villas, and they're a luxury villa company.
Okay.
And then I worked in the Omni chain for a while. So the hospitality, it's kind of, and it's changed so much. This
Yeah,
is back
sure.
in like 1998, right? So the hospitality, and it's very sophisticated, and I think each experience now, whether it's Airbnb or hotels or timeshare or whatever, have a specific niche, and I think I like being exposed to all of these. So,
Yeah.
and hopefully we can perhaps in one of our contracts write some kind of thing where we get a free stay. I don't know.
Is that not just normally built in? I thought it should.
I don't know
be.
how you're writing your contracts, but
I don't. What should it be? But well, no. I mean, I think the other thing that I was gonna say too is that a lot of these hotel groups, like there was one that I found, it was owned by a singular family for the past 20 years, and it was like where Art Basel was started. Like the idea of Art Basel like came up into this hotel. So I love the history that's behind these. You know me, I love history regardless. Sure. But a lot of these hotel brands, especially in the Florida area, there's a lot of like niche little type boutique type hotels. Fontainebleau, they're doing like, that's like a big Florida name. I wouldn't say that's like the most historic one, but I mean, it is one of them. And it's fun to see how they're pivoting. They're going, Fontainebleau used to be much more exclusive, high-end VIP type stuff. And now they're like putting in, I think like, I forgot what the article said. Maybe it was like $100 million on all these different water slides because they want to be more family oriented. Yeah.
They made a push into the Vegas market too, the Fontainebleau.
Yeah, I did hear that. Yeah.
And that actually, that was a project gone wrong in terms of.
I think I heard that too.
Yeah. Basically, talking
over budget or something.
No, speaking of unpermitted, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's
yeah. So basically, in a nutshell, they had a GC group that built, several floors prior to getting,
any permits.
Not permits, but they didn't get the sign off from the. Exactly. So they had built several, floors, and then the state comes in and says, "I'm sorry, you did this wrong," and so. That's
you make a mistake like that in Vegas, you're swimming with the fishes later.
Exactly. So again, I think what we do in terms of construction is important because you make a small mistake like that, and I think that's why our intentional approach, how we look at the project holistically, like we said, is important because one miss could be a multi-million-dollar miss, and and you don't want to be the cause of that kind of pain for us as a company, for our clients,
Which I think is why I know we started this way, and most companies started that way. Is like if you don't have a construction management and a pre-construction services as a general contractor, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. Now the client's not always going to want to pay to have that. You famously use, I think, Keith's termed coin of free con.
Yeah.
But any kind of mistake in construction is highly expensive. I mean, I remember. When I was working with the View House, there was these garage doors, and I think we wanted like a black garage door, and they spec'd like a brown garage door. And it ended up being like $45,000 more, and the black was like sold out. So like we had to get
the
that
project.
Well, yeah, we had to get those doors to open on time, the more expensive ones, and it was an oversight. I don't remember if that was in the architectural drawings or not. I believe it probably was, and that would be more on the subcontractor side. But ultimately, the general contractor is typically responsible for all those type things. Now, in that situation, I don't think we had to pay for it because it's just a unique individual handling that process. But,
we won't go into that unique individual. With
We're gonna get him on this show, though.
Specific skills that he has. What's his name?
Yeah. He's like, I have a very he's the Liam Neeson of development.
Exactly. But to your point too, because I'm also seeing this trend from the ownership group. And I actually stepped away from a deal earlier this week. It is a local grocery store chain that specializes in healthy offerings. So I'll just leave it at that. And I've been targeting this particular construction manager for months. Every month, I as part of my task, I check in. Hey, how are things going? You need us to bid on anything? And he'd mentioned that they had a few projects. Well, one was in Wyoming, and I was just it was actually 2 days ago. I reached out. Hey, anything going on? He goes, yeah, we've got the Wyoming project that I talked to you about. It's kicking off. We need a bid in 2 weeks. And I said, thanks, but no thanks. We know that to give a thoughtful bid, one that we can stand behind, 4 weeks. That's ideal, And, the guy was like, well, you've been hounding me for months, and now I'm giving you an opportunity to bid. You don't want that? And I'm like, to me, the project is less important than the relationship and our reputation.
Yeah.
So, yes, we don't respectfully declining.
Yeah.
Well, that was 2 days ago. Today, he called. He goes, "Hey, we've got 2 more projects in Texas. I don't have the drawings yet, but as soon as I do, I'm going to shoot them over to you." And I think
I think he probably appreciated that
because I think that's the other part. I'm not just blaming the ownership side as saying that we need 2 weeks, but it's also on the GC side. If we don't create a standard. And if we are just yes men and just that cheapens the entire industry, and this is why a lot of GCs have a bad reputation, and a lot of them are looked down upon.
Yeah,
trying to cut
don't
corners.
exist anymore.
Who don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So that's probably another reason why we're thriving after 12 years.
Yeah,
we're just growing and growing new markets. So
exactly, yeah, and I mean. And that's the good thing about Dennis too. He's like he's very by the book,
Oh yeah, and very
There's not going to
transparent.
be any cutting of corners. Transparency is 100%, and it feels good to work with somebody like that. Because it just goes to show that you can do things the right way and still get ahead. But
well, I think we've said it all. Thanks for sharing your week in BD. We could get further into the weeds there. I would love to invite more BD professionals on this podcast,
or Alice Cooper,
Alice Cooper.
If you can get them.
I'll try.
I've seen him in concert one time, and that was front row.
We're actually working on the suite on the 13th floor.
Yeah, like the presidential suite.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So
the hotel is actually as old as Alice Cooper. So. As always, we're always looking for guests on the show. We're gonna start having some guests on, as soon as we kind of get a little bit settled over here on our end. But we wanted to be consistent for you guys. We want to continuously do one of these every week, and we do like to be picking people from Florida, Arizona, Colorado. Actually, I've talked to people in California too. So. I don't know. I appreciate
and we definitely need to thank our sponsor, Global Construction, Capella Roofing.
Yes,
for making this possible. And until next week, we'll do it again.
Absolutely, brother. All right, good.